Is the classic and collectible car market on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, and P-Car Market in a total state of limbo? Does anyone know what's going on? We do, or at least we'd like to think we do. This is Bid Nerds. The bidding starts now. Bid Nerds is your YouTube car game show. It is. Welcome to Bid Nerds, everyone. We've got a live show going here. Thanks for hanging out. It's so good to be back and have the Nerd Herd hanging out with us. We tried to do a show last Sunday, and we had a total technical failure, so apologies for that one. We did try. Hey, Michael Deeb in San Francisco. My name is John Polnik. This is a live show. We are coming to you from the Rami Studio in downtown Las Vegas. This is the show where we analyze listings on Bring a Trailer and Cars and Bids. The big question tonight is the market in this total state of limbo? Michael Deeb, what the heck is going on out there? Does anybody even know?
Sean, you went home to the motherland of Washington State for a business trip, and then we put a valiant effort into a show which didn't work. But man, the results while you were gone, it's like you went time traveled. It has just been so strange to see some of the results, and we will get to those in just a second. We have some very interesting things to share with the audience tonight, and I, for one, am looking forward to some of the reconciliations.
That is true. So we, because some of the Nerd Herd, you guys who are regularly watching and tried to watch that live show from the last episode last Sunday night, we'll go through our reconciliations very quickly. But we're still trying to answer that question. Is the market in a state of limbo? And I think the results of the listings that we analyzed on the last episode that we did get through are pretty telling. What's the first car on that list, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP, we're going to circle right back to the 1974 Datsun 260Z with a 4-speed manual. This is an alumnus car on Bring a Trailer that had previously sold for $26,000. The new owner took the car and fixed it up a little bit, put the original wheels on it. I think he repainted the car and brought it back to market. John, it's a really nice car because it's not a 2+2. It's just a 2-seater. It's got the small bumpers and a rare color that I love. JP, I started the bidding at $36,260. You took the under at $30,000, and Kelly Smith, our third nerd, joined us remote and guessed $28,000. Shockingly, JP, our car did really well because when we covered it, it was at a very low number, and we all wondered if it was going to bring collector money. It did. $41,000 where it sold on 51 bids. That's not bad. I don't know what he spent on the paint, but if he bought it for 26 and you sold it for 41 and you didn't spend too much money on it, that's a job well done. 51 bids, JP. Quite the result. Anything to add to that one?
Yeah, I think people are asking all the time. I know you're getting the same question for what's going on in the market. Are things crashing? The prevailing wisdom out there is that the market is just totally collapsing. And if you look at the thumbnails that we post all the time for this show, you would think that we believe the same thing. But cars like this are showing that there's still a lot of strength in the classic car market for good quality classic cars. At $40,000, that's more than we've seen one of these go for, but this was a nice one, and air-cooled 911s and a lot of other higher-end, more expensive classic cars are bringing even more money, which I think leads people who want to be enthusiasts, who want to get into this, call it a sport, are left going, well, geez, I can't afford an air-cooled 911, but with $40,000, but with $40,000, I can get this really nice car. In a lot of ways, this might be better than an old 911. So I think that the rising tide that oddly enough is still rising for some cars is still bringing up the entire bay. But let us know what you guys think of the results of this little 260Z. And Michael Deeb, what other cars did we look at on the last episode?
Sorry, my friends are having a blast with a group text, and I'm trying to get them to stop. So sorry, JP. I just had to type to Sahan and Yuri and John, who are having fun showing pictures of JP in a Volkswagen Thing on my phone, and I'm trying to do the show, and I keep seeing pictures of JP.
All right. Forget those guys. What's the next car on the list?
I'm like, guys, chill for just a minute so we can get through the show. Thank you. Anyway, John, we're going to run right back and take a look at the 2018 Porsche 911 GT2 RS Weissach package. Our car was shown with terrible assets out of Albuquerque, New Mexico on Bring a Trailer. This particular car had both the Weissach package and the magnesium wheels, a $31,000 combined option, and just 2,900 miles. Black is a little boring, and the red interior, I'd say, is a little polarizing. So for that reason, JP, I thought our car would not break 400. I started or opened the bidding at $396,991. JP, you took about a $7,000 under at $390,991. And our good friend Kelly Smith was third nerd and guest hosted for us on the show. He took an under below you at just $389,000. Kelly missed a Yahtzee by just $1,000, JP, because our car hammered at $388,800. He actually missed a Yahtzee by $200. I don't even think I realized. But the car failed to sell there at 37 bids. JP, my quick take on this is, for that car with the miles, that's all the money, and he should have accepted that. Now the car is burnt, and where is he going to go? Where is he going to go from this platform and get more money than that? I think this was a mistake by the seller. He should have accepted that offer and sold the car. They should have pulled the reserve when it got up to like 375, and they didn't. And now he's got a firm grip on it. So JP, I don't see this car breaking 400 maybe ever again. So where are you at on this one?
Yeah, I think this car definitely had a chance to do much better. Shout out to, looks like Buddha and Peter both got Yahtzees on there. The
Oh, yeah.
Look, if you're new to this show and you're hanging out and you're watching this thing going, what is this thing? Get your butt over there into the Nerd Herd. Get in the live chat. Introduce yourself. You're going to introduce yourself to some great people, and you're going to make some great friends. The guys in the Nerd Herd, the live chat, really do a great job at making predictions, in a lot of cases way better than us. That said, I think this car will do just fine this spring when he brings it back to market, if he brings it back to market with assets that live up to this car. This guy should have hired a photographer for a couple of $1,000 and made really cool photos and video. This is the kind of car that you got to show everything. You can't sell a $500,000 car with cell phone photos, and this guy deserves to languish and fail to sell his car. Look, GT2s are still, these are very popular. A lot of they popped for a while, and then they kind of flattened out. The new GT3 RS came out, and now the GT2. I mean, the GT2 RS is still kind of the biggest bad boy on the block, but the new GT2 RS is probably going to come out in the 992.2 variant here very soon. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to values then. But that said, I think this is definitely a car that is in a state of limbo. And I wouldn't bet on one of these in the short term, that's for sure. All right, what do you guys think of the results of this GT2 RS? Let us know in the comments below. Again, congrats to the Yahtzees in the Nerd Herd. What was the next car on the list, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP, we took a flyer on a Superformance Mark III Cobra replica on Bring a Trailer at the last show. Our car was listed out of Beverly Hills, California, and showing 21,000 miles on the odometer. A 350 Windsor has been punched out to 418 cc's, 418 cubic inches. And the car has been outfitted with some modern running gear with 17-inch Halabrand-style wheels and some big multi-piston Willwood calipers. JP, upon closer inspection, we can see a lot of safety wiring and wear and tear on a car like this that shows that the car has been at least club raced for fun, maybe not professionally, but certainly this car has had a lot of track life in its history. We wonder, JP, if this car would bring any money at all. I opened the bidding at $40,000, and I proved to be the low man when you took a bid over me at $43,000. And our really good friend Kelly Smith joined us as third nerd, and as guest host, he took the over just above John and went $45,000. JP, our result was really interesting on this. When you talk about a market in limbo, man, oh man, did we not see this coming. $76,166 was where this car hammered, and it sold for that number on a whopping 68 bids. I have to say, and we touched on this briefly when we tried the last show, Anthony Vieira was the only member of the Nerd Herd on record to be in the 70s. I believe his bid was $72,000 from memory, which means he was the only one in the neighborhood, and he deserves the win. So, Anthony, go ahead and make yourself a watch and put the bid nerds on it. Well done. JP, unpack this one for us.
Yep. I mean, when it comes to kit cars, whether it's a Shelby or maybe a Porsche 356 Speedster or even coupes, it always comes down to the specific builder and the components and the way the car was done. A lot of better builders get, when it comes to 356s, a Beck Speedster is going to get twice as much as a no-name home build. So I suspect that this is one of those builders that's like Beck in the Cobra Shelby world, and admittedly just don't know anything about these or nearly enough. And Anthony schooled everyone. He not only schooled the nerds, the hosts, but he also schooled the Nerd Herd. I don't think anyone else in the Nerd Herd was anywhere even close to. So again, good job, Anthony. But I think it does prove, though, that there is a state of limbo. I mean, going into the spring right now, geez, you'd think that convertibles in cars that have no utility whatsoever would totally be spiraling down. But here's a car that, brought $70-something thousand. Is this a situation? Should this car have been $100,000? Did we miss it? Is this a result of a softening market, or is this just what these go for? Let us know what you know about these in the comments. And that's all the cars that we did on the last episode. But since we tried to do an episode that failed, we want to circle back to a couple of the cars that we were going to analyze and talk about those listings. Even though they have closed already, there's still some interesting stuff to talk about those. So before we get to actual predictions on tonight's show, we're going to look at two more cars that are in the past, but we haven't actually talked about on the show yet. What was the first car on that list, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP, what we're going to talk about is a 1974 Porsche 914 that I used to own. This was a car that I bought private party based on a recommendation by you, JP, and Matt Whitesell, our good friend who owns 914 Rubber up in Portland, Oregon. Somebody that the guys, even John Ortiz, is really good friends with a gentleman named David Keynes in Southern California. This was David's personal car. He listed on Instagram that he wanted to sell it, and David was kind enough to sell me the car for $48,000 back in 2022. The car has had a 2.2 liter flat six conversion. So they took the four cylinder out, put a 2.2 flat six. It probably makes about 220 horsepower, which is legit. But the car had been built before David owned it with the intention of taking it as a dedicated track car. As such, they put a complete roll cage in the car, JP, meaning that you couldn't reach the fasteners to release and remove and enjoy the Targa top. So the car was basically destined to be a full roll cage. And I mean something across the header, something across the doors. You had to climb over the roll bar, drop down into the bucket seat, all while removing the quick release on the steering wheel so that I could get my body in there, put the steering wheel back on, put the racing harness on, and then go drive your Porsche. The car was absolutely thrilling to drive the half dozen times I took it out on a back road. But for the most better part of 6 to 8 months, this car sat in my garage and I never reached for it. It also didn't help that we had a newborn at home. But the car was a blast to drive. It wasn't a great car to live with, and I never did a track day with it. So I didn't want to start chopping it up. I kind of lost my enthusiasm for it, even though I enjoyed driving it while I had it. And JP, I wound up selling it in the spring of 23 for just $43,000. Well, the owner of that car lived in Scottsdale, Arizona. He went resealed the engine, repaired the shifting linkage. You know, they've got these weird shift linkages on the 915 gearbox. But the big thing was he took out most of the roll cage and just left a roll hoop behind the drivers. So now you have this wonderful Fuchs equipped 2.2 liter with a great little quick shift, a great beautiful seats and a harness, and it's got a great exhaust. So he really did some nice things to this car. And JP, I thought this car was going to do well. I thought it had a chance to bring 50 grand. Our car sold as an alumnus on Bring a Trailer for $55,000 with very good photos by 911R out of Scottsdale, Arizona. And JP, that came on 25 bids. So when I went to sell the car, you helped me. I lowered my reserve in the final minutes. The car hammered at 41, and BAT sent me a check for $1,700 to make me whole to my lowered reserve down to, I think, 43 or 44,000 bucks. So the car barely sold, but here we see the car bring 55, and I think the car is much more usable and much more versatile. So very happy to see this car again. I do miss it, and I wish that I had the wherewithal to do the things that this guy did. I think the new owner is going to get the best of both worlds, and I'm happy to see it run. John, we were talking about the car as something we were going to cover based on what you knew of the car, and I think you even drove it a couple of times. What do you think of that result based on your experience behind the wheel of that car?
I think it's a great result, but you just said that you wish you had the wherewithal to do all those things. I still think that given your situation at the time, it made sense for you to sell it at the price that you did. I think that to reseal that engine, I mean, that's at least $5,000. I mean, that's most shops are charging somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $15,000 to reseal a flat six air-cooled engine. So we don't know how much he paid for that. I don't know if this seller really came out ahead, even if he had a sweetheart deal and could get that reseal for, say, $5,000, and then the amount of work that it took to cut that roll bar and then regraft it in. It looks like looking at the way they did it, it's got that sidebar that maybe goes down into the rockers there. I'm not sure exactly what they did, but they didn't just chop the front out. They actually went in there and did it well, which is also something that's not inexpensive to do. And then combine that with the fact that he went to a third-party seller, the actual owner of the car went to a consignment shop, so that owner is paying a chunk of whatever this car brought to a consigner. I think you add it all up, and you've definitely you basically eat up that $10,000 delta between what you sold it for and what this seller sold it for. I think that this seller, at the end of the day, if he adds it all up, is probably coming out even, which I think is pretty good. But I don't know if I would have bothered going through the trouble if you had done that. You'd have been sitting on that money, and you'd have been sitting on an unusable car for how many months? And that doesn't make sense. If you're going to try to turn over the money on some kind of in a car business, it doesn't make sense. I don't know why this guy went through all this trouble and sold it. It sounds like all the things that you didn't like about the car. And let me tell you, I saw smiles on your face for the first half hour when you were driving this thing, but when you click that 32 minutes, you were not happy. No one wanted to be in that car. When we went on that drive, I think it was a professor run, and you were like, anybody want to drive this? And I think it was, I can't remember. Mental was like, I'll drive it. And you're like, done. And you got in my Macan, and you're like, oh, thank God. Right? It was not a fun place to be. It was an exhilarating car, but it was definitely something that, this was not a road trip happy car, even though those seats were just sick. Awesome. I don't know. What do you guys think of the results of this 914? Do you think Deeb should have held on to it and done all that work to try to yield? I think at the end of the day, if you're lucky, you would have made a couple $1,000s for a lot of work and a lot of time. That doesn't make sense.
Big gamble.
All right. What's that? Big gamble, right? And you wouldn't have known. And at the end of the day, you still don't know what the result would have been. You still may have been flat. You may have lost all the money that you put into it on top of that. So anyways, I want to shout out to our friend Chris Carbine, who is in New Orleans right now. He's in Louisiana, and they are experiencing a hurricane. So
Francine.
He is in the chat. He is OG Nerd Herd. Everybody wish well our friend Chris, and hope that he keeps his head literally above water, right?
All the Cajun watchers down there, we hope you're safe. We hope the power stays on, and nothing washes out to sea. There you go.
That is true. Okay, so does this result mean that the market is in limbo? I think it does. I think this is a good result for a 914.6 with all this stuff. But I wouldn't make any bets right now based on these numbers. Let's take a look at another car that we wanted to actually analyze, even though it's already closed. This one's extra interesting, and you guys are going to notice a trend here. What's the deal with this car, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP, we were also on the very same show going to cover your old 1996 Porsche 911 Carrera 4 Coupe with a 6-speed manual.
Guys, this is totally random too. We had no idea. We were looking through the listings like everyone else does, and we go, wait a minute, that's Deeb's old car. Scroll. Wait a minute, that's JP's old car. What was going on? Talk about limbo. Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt there, Michael Deeb.
Patrick LeBeau actually found this and sent it to me, and he cited, because he's been watching the 993 market, and we were talking as we sold Chuck's car, not that long ago, John, and then he picked out a car. We watched it close, and we talked about that result based on market analysis. And then he said, "Oh, JP's car is on there again," and I was like, "No way!" So we were going to cover JP's car, and this is a really cool car that JP bought off his friend in Las Vegas with super low miles, and it was like brand new car. So JP, I won't do much more of the introduction other than that. I'll let you tell the story of your ownership and parting with the car, and then the car coming back to market, and then we'll come back to the result, which is outstanding. So give me your soliloquy.
I know everybody's going, what? JP had a non-cabrio? What is going on here?
Non-black?
Yeah, right. As we scroll through these pictures, one thing you guys may notice is how awful they are, guys, and how few of them there are. This is one of the worst listings we've seen in a while. It really kind of drives me nuts that BAT is letting sellers get away with these awful listings on cars that are, 80, 90, 100, $500,000. I don't know why they do that. Anyways, back to the car. This is a really brilliant 993 C4. That was the thing that I didn't really like about it. I really wanted a C2, and when I owned the car, I got it with 30-something thousand miles on it, which is terribly low on a 993, and it was the kind of thing where every time I drove it, I felt like I was ruining its value. By the way, that is a 993 RS shift knob, and I will tell you that if you own a 993 manual, I don't care if you have the factory shifter or if you've got a short shift or whatever, but this is the single greatest mod I think you can do on a 993, and it literally takes 10 minutes. You'll pull the old one off. You got to stand, you got to crouch in your car, and you got to straddle the center console and grab the knob and pull it up and try not to smash your face when it pops off, right? And then you pop the new one back on with a screwdriver, get the lip in there. But shortening the shift lever by 1.5 inches makes a completely different shifting experience with that Butter G50. Anyone that has a 993, go out and find a 993 RS shift lever. Every time I see a used 993 shift lever for sale on something like Renlist or Pelican, or when I'm digging through stuff, I just buy it. I'm buying it. I think I have 2 of them in my garage, in my closet, waiting for the next time I happen to own a 993, because it is that awesome. Anyways, talking a lot about a stupid shift knob. This is a great car, had low miles, but I felt like I was ruining the value every time I drove it. And at the time, the market was still pretty hot. I did own the car for a very good price, and I kind of wanted something exotic. So I went to the Audi store down the street that I work with. I represent the Audi Henderson. Great people over there. If you are ever in the market for an Audi, give them a holler. But they happen to have an R8 that I had my eye on, and I literally traded this 993 straight across for the R8 that they had in stock. So I drove that 993 for about a year and then got the R8. Loved the R8, but it's not an air-cooled Porsche, that's for sure. It was fun. I got it out of my system. This particular car was running great, looked great, drove great. When I traded it in, it turns out someone within the dealership group bought the car. They didn't sell it outside of the dealership. They sold it internally, and apparently it sprung some oil leaks, and they sent it to our friends at Godden Porsche, Godden Classic of Las Vegas, and they did a reseal on it. And that's why we're talking about the reseal on your 914, Michael Deeb.
Yep.
That, This particular reseal cost the guy almost $25,000. I think they also did the SAI thing too. I don't know if it was an issue or not, but maybe it popped up. And that's one of the problems with a 96 or newer 993 is that secondary air intake, and that's a $10,000 repair bill. So $25,000 repair bill, almost $30,000. That pencils out. Reseal 15. SAI another 10, and then some extra stuff, you get to almost $30,000 very quickly. And that's why sometimes people are always looking for low mileage old cars. When you're looking at a classic car, it's not about the mileage, guys. If you think you're going to drive it, you have to really understand what you're getting. A higher mileage car with lots and lots of maintenance is better than a low mileage car without much maintenance, because here it is, 30,000 miles. This car needed a lot of maintenance. Air-cooled cars cannot sit for 20 years without getting maintenance and being driven regularly. So unfortunately, the guy who got a hold of this car, he did all that work and then gave it back to the dealership, and the dealership tried to sell it for like $120 for a couple of months, and then they wound up finding someone to buy it, I think somewhere in the 80s or 90s. And it went back on market to some guy in Florida, and here he is trying to sell it on BAT, and he did. Michael Deeb, what were the results of this car?
JP, you and I were wondering if this car would even make it into like the mid-range, because I don't know, the assets are terrible. It wasn't well represented.
Look at these photos. Look at this, guys. It's terrible.
The market is soft. JP, our car, I can't believe I'm saying this right now. This guy sold the car for $92,000, which is just amazing. $92,000 where it sold on 63 bids. This car got all kinds of action. And it almost happened at the end because there wasn't a lot of action when we were looking at it. And like I said, we were talking about like, oh, this guy, he might not be able to get off this car. Like, what's he going to do? And, oh, man, he must be laughing all the way to the bank. So there you go. Low mileage. And it must be the knob. JP, the Nerd Herd had a blast with you droning on about the knob. There are literally a dozen knob jokes in the Nerd Herd chat. I love you guys. That is so funny. Anthony Vieira's like, did he say knob?
And then he loves it when I talk about knobs. That's his favorite thing is knob stuff. So yeah.
And then Kevin said, "Why didn't you keep the knob?" I think you touched on that when you said you had a couple of knobs.
I have a couple more. Yeah. Look, guys, the result. I don't know if I agree with you, Deeb. I don't think it's crazy that this car brought that much. I think what held this car back, I think it should have brought more. It's still got just 40,000 miles on it, and it has $30,000 of service just done. This car is ready to go. I think people were going, okay, these assets are terrible, but look, I can look at the receipts right there. I can call God and Porsche, God and Classic of Las Vegas, and they'll tell you how good the car is after they just did all that service. If you want a 993 coupe that's this clean, this low mileage, and this ready to go, I think this should have been, I think if the guy had better photos, I think this car could have gotten 105, 110. It should have. And if it were a C2, it definitely would have brought like 120. This car is way better than Chuck's. And Chuck's car was nice, but Chuck's car had 50-something thousand miles on it and did not have the service records that this car had. And that's a big deal. So I don't know. I think whoever bought this car did just fine. I am going to tell you guys a secret, and it's not really a secret because look, a bunch of people were talking about the rock guards on the side. Guys, can you see those big black rock guards? People were asking questions about the rock guards. There they are. The shark fin. On the 993s, all came with either clear rock guards, or they came with body color matched rock guards from the factory. So even if you got like adventuring green, you got matching color rock guards. Yeah. Those rock guards after 10 years crack and fade and look terrible. And that was certainly the case on my car. Mine had the clear ones. When I went to my dealer or detailer to have them removed, they were cloudy and ugly, and I wanted to put fresh new ones on there. So I had him remove the one on the driver's side, and it came off just fine. Everything worked out. When he removed the one on the passenger side, it kind of messed up the the clear coat in a couple of spots, like right on the edge. And it was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I thought I was just going to get a little touch-up paint and fix it up or whatever. I went and got an estimate. Silver, polar silver in particular, is one of the hardest colors to color match. So if to get a painter to paint just that area, he would had to have done the entire quarter and then blended it into the door, and it was just like pulling a string. And at the time, it was right after I got the car. I was like, well, I'm going to keep it. I don't really care. So I literally went to my vinyl guy and I got a set of the factory rock guards, and he scanned the rock guard and then blew it up by like 2%. So it was just slightly bigger, so that when he put the one on the passenger side, it just covered up that little bit of clear coat damage that was on there. So I'm an a-hole. Sorry, everybody. Wasn't trying to pull anything. But that is, whoever bought this car is going to have to deal with that paint issue underneath that rock guard. But honestly, if I were to own this car, I wouldn't even bother. I would have left it. I mean, it really, you could hardly tell. It just looked like it was barely there. It looked really like a water stain more than anything else. But these are the kinds of things you got to look out for. And frankly, and so I actually posted that in the poor guy's listing, like, hey, I'm the previous owner, or I'm a previous owner of this car. I don't know if this has been taken care of since then, but whoever's bidding on this should know that there's under that. Nobody said anything about it. Couldn't believe it. They were asking all kinds of questions about whether or not the rock guards were factory or not. But once I posted that, just silence. Nobody's like, no big deal. Damage underneath them. It's fine. Nothing to see here. So, all right, I feel a little bit better. I've absolved myself. I feel like I'm in a confession booth.
John, I think the moral of today's episode is if you buy one of our old cars, you're in for a reseal and a repaint. Go to commercial.
Oh, man. There it is. It is time for a commercial. Is the state of the classic car market in limbo? We're going to take a look at some new listings and make some predictions right after this. Hey guys, I got to tell you about our friends Gaudin Porsche of Las Vegas and Gaudin Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you got to call our friend Steve at Gaudin. This guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Gaudin Porsche of Las Vegas.
You could win this Lotus Emira from Vegas Auto Gallery at Vegas Auto Fest. Hi, I'm Rami from The Rami Show on YouTube, and I've teamed up with Vegas Auto Gallery to give anyone who goes to Vegas Auto Fest a chance to win this car. Get your tickets at vegasautofest.com and come to Red Rock Country Club Saturday, September 21st to win.
Spectator tickets are just $20 and kids under 16 are free. So get your tickets now for a chance to win this new Lotus Emira.
From Vegas Auto Gallery. Vegas Auto Fest. The drivers are coming.
Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. That's right, I'm looking at my watch. That watch in that ad is giving me anxiety because it's ticking, right? No problem normally, but the time is ticking. AutoFest is almost here. For those of us who are on the AutoFest team, we have so much work still to do. We are so excited about the show this year. It is going to be such a big deal. F1 tickets were given away. Anthony is giving away a special watch that he built just for AutoFest, and I hate it because I really want that watch. Every time I look at the picture, I'm like, oh my God, I need to have this thing. But someone that comes to AutoFest is going to win that thing, and you could even win a 2024 Lotus Emira this year, and those are spectacular cars if you've ever gotten a chance to get behind the wheel of one of those. So make sure, if you haven't already, make plans to get to Vegas next Saturday. That is September 21st. There's still room for cars to register. We opened up a bigger area this year, so we got lots of room for lots of cars. So we'll be taking registrations almost right up to the end. We got room for you, but it does make sense to register early so that you get a good spot. So there it is. Yeah, Michael Deeb, you ready to come out?
Or if you show up at AutoFest and you can't find parking, just go to the gate and say, I'm in the show.
Just buy a display pass and you can roll right up. That's a good idea. Yeah. That's a good life hack. That's a Vegas AutoFest hack, because
that's what I do.
There is no parking at the venue. You have to park at the Summerlin ballpark and then take the shuttle up. We've got lots of shuttles, so it's very convenient. It's air conditioned, it's very easy.
Yeah.
But after 9 o'clock, we shut the road down to the property. The only vehicles coming up and down that road are either emergency vehicles
Shuttles.
or the shuttles, and that's it.
Yeah.
So do not expect to Uber up there. Don't expect to park up there. But life hack that Michael Deeb just came up with, which I think is brilliant, just sign up for your registration right there and then show that, and you can drive up, load in early before 9 o'clock. You're good to go. Just like that. All right, guys, is the Bring a Trailer market in limbo? We are seeing some crazy results. Everyone's talking about how car prices are crashing and spiraling down and resets and all that stuff, including us. We've been talking about a softening in the market for quite a while, but man, we keep seeing some just awesome results on great classic cars that make you think, you know what? I think people are just going, inflation is still a thing, number one. So go ahead and take a drink, guys. And number two, people have some excess cash around. They're like, I don't know where to put it. I'm scared to put it in the stock market. I'm scared to put it in crypto. I'm scared to put it in precious metals. I can drive a car if everything goes to hell. Is that what's going on? What is causing this limbo? Love to get your guys' opinion. So let us know in the comments or jump in the chat and have a conversation with everyone there. And, oh, by the way, hit the thumbs up, guys. There's a lot of you that are watching the show right now that are not in the chat group and haven't hit the thumbs up. We should have dozens of thumbs up or thumbs down. You can give us thumbs down too. Either one is fine, really. We're good with that. All right, is the market in a state of limbo? What's the first car on the list that we want to analyze? See if we can answer that question, Michael Deeb.
All right, JP, let's see what an exotic Ford can tell us about the market.
Yeah.
JP, we are going to take a close look at a 2022 Ford GT. Our car is a premium listing on Bring a Trailer out of, Mukwongo, Wisconsin. I don't know if I said that right, but our car,
Mungo, not gonna go to Wisconsin. There you go.
Our car has just 15 miles on the odometer. JP, this car has barely been test driven. That is unbelievable. Just 15 miles on the odometer, and it's already 3 car years old. JP, our car had an original MSRP of $500 and let's just call it $70,000. I will say this, JP, working with Haggerty and Broad Arrow Group, I got to see a lot of Ford GTs that came to auction. This is a very popular car to trade and speculate on in the secondary market in the United States because it really is our most exotic car that we produce in the U.S. And so, JP, a lot of these come to market. I do not recall seeing one painted this very interesting liquid red tri-coat over the dark energy, which is sort of the black Alcantara interior. This car was basically built for Ford to the rule book, to the specification of the rule book. And then almost like as a second, like an afterthought, they figured out where they could put the headlights and the air conditioning and the blinkers and the taillights and all that stuff. This car was really done sort of in reverse. And it meets all the criteria for the race car so that it would be competitive. And competitive it was. This car did do well when it was racing, but the Ford GT is a little long in the tooth, and we don't see them on track anymore. But the cars that were built for the road, JP, the collectors love to trade them. And so despite being nearly $600,000, and let's face it, at $570,000, the guy who had the privilege of being able to buy this car probably played his Ford dealer somewhere in the neighborhood on the low end of $100,000 to $150,000 and may have paid over $200,000 for the privilege of buying this car. So the addendum on the window of this would have been breathtaking, for whoever was given the opportunity to do that. So, JP, there are 2 basic number watermarks that these cars tend to trade for. The low or no mile cars get to close to $1 million. The cars that have 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, sometimes even 4,000 miles, those cars tend to hover in the $800,000 range. JP, our car is doing really well and has a premium listing. It probably ran for 9 or 10 days, but it's going to close in a couple of days here. And it's already at a pretty eye-watering number. So I think this car is getting enough action to imply it's going to retail. I think this car will hammer. John, what are your thoughts on this car? And what do we think we're going to learn from an exotic car with basically no miles on it as far as the market and being in limbo? I mean, really, aren't we talking about the couch change for billionaires here?
This car reminds me of when you're in some crappy country in like third world or whatever, and you go to some zoo, or there's a poor donkey that's strapped to an RV or something like that in the middle of the desert, and they've got a sign that's like donkey rides 25 pesos or something. The poor animal is just suffering in the heat, and just it's just. What are you doing wasting this poor thing? This car not being driven is just an abject waste, and I hate the person that owns the car. Whoever you are, I don't like you. I think you're a bad person. And whoever the person that buys this car is, I also hate you and don't like you, because the person that buys this car isn't going to put any more miles on it than the person who already owns it. This car is going to drive from wherever it's sitting a couple hundred feet, up the flatbed and into an enclosed trailer, and it's going to go to the next place, the next owner's driveway, and into some garage or some lift or some place. It's going to be sitting in some warehouse for God knows how long. No one's ever going to drive this car. This is just I hate people that do this stuff. It's just abject. It's just, you're just the bad ones. It's like hedge fund managers, right? Like, I love capitalism, but I hate people that are just straight up there to, profit off of other people's losses. This is just gross in every way. This car was speculated on in the first place, and it's being speculated on again, and I hope whoever gets it loses their effing ass. So that said, what do we think this poor elephant in the zoo that doesn't get to run, or the lion that doesn't get to run out in the field that's being fed, dead chickens? What's this thing going to bring?
JP, our car closes in 2 days, but believe it or not, it is already up to $820,000 on a respectable, as far as is there been any action, 14 bids. So some people are watching this car and watching it closely, and quite a few have already bid. Again, it's a one-owner car. It's just got literally delivery miles. And John, I think this car is going to sell for $1,050,000. I think the delivery miles and the rare shade of this liquid red are the driving factors here. One owner, it's got all the stuff, and like I said, there are plenty of takers for a no-mile Ford GT in this country. Just ask your friends at Mecum, or what's the other one, Barrett Jackson. They're selling cars like this all the time, and all the major auctions like RM and Gooding and Broad Arrow Group. If they have a live auction, they have cars like, they have to have a Gullwing, they have to have a Daytona, they have to have a Ford GT, and so there is one in every auction. There are no shortage of buyers. There are always people looking for these. As gluttonous as it is to see one of these unused, somebody's going to pay top dollar for the privilege of being the next speculator on its value. So I think $1,050,000 is what it's going to take to get it done, and I think it's going to find, much to my chagrin, John, because I do agree with you. Much to my chagrin, I think this car is going to sell. So $1,050,000, partner, to you. What's your bid?
I'm going to go just over you and say there are a lot of douchebags out there with a lot of money. I'm going to go $1,150,000. Is that over you?
Yep.
Because you were,
indeed.
yeah, that's basically
by 100 grand.
By 100 grand over. And unfortunately, the way the world is, I think those douchebags are going to come out ahead. This is probably a good investment. This is something that we'll appreciate. This is blue chip. The people that are still in the market, there may be a lot of limbo going on, but blue chip, top end, perfect condition, delivery mile type collectible cars like this are always going to have a place. This is the kind of car we talk a lot about, the idea of, like, will gasoline ever be made illegal? Will they make cars illegal? All that kind of stuff. This is the kind of car that even in that world is still going to be worth something, because people will just want to marvel at of what it is, and they'll want to look at it. But it is just a shame that it's just never going to see, you're just never going to hear that exhaust, at RPMs. It's just dumb. I don't get it. Anyways, what do you guys think this car will bring? What's that? Go ahead, Deeb.
In light of your prophecy, it's entirely possible that car is never broken in.
That's
crazy?
my point. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This car will never it's got
broken
15
in.
miles on it.
Never
Who
broken
is
out.
ever going to put 100 miles on it? This is delivery miles, and that means something in the collector world, unfortunately. And it just means that there's a lot of people out there that are just bad people. That's all it is. Do you guys agree with me, or am I just an a-hole? We all know I am an a-hole, but am I just an a-hole in this particular situation? I'd love to see if you guys agree with me on that one. Let us know in the comments below, and let's see if we can continue to try to answer this question. Are we in limbo when it comes to the classic car market on Bring a Trailer? What's the next car on the list, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP. There's some very interesting bids on the Ford GT. Mike Myers thinks that thing might go for 1.7. John, our next car is a 1995 Porsche 911 Carrera 4 Cabriolet with a 6-speed manual that was offered to us by Chuck Burrow, one of the Nerd Herd and an old friend and customer from the Godden Porsche days. Chuck is a Porsche guy through and through. Chuck collects a couple of very cool air-cooled 911s. JP, you and I would fight over the privilege of being able to wax his cars. Chuck just added, I hope it's okay that I'm saying this, but Chuck just added a yellow RS America to the fold, and thus one of the cars has to go to make room for his new baby. His new baby will be on display at Luftgekühlt, so hopefully we'll get to run into him, and some of the Nerd Herd that are hanging out will get to meet Chuck in person and see his fly color, which is really, really cool. That car is sure to garner a lot of attention. But in the meantime, Chuck is parting with his beloved C4 Cab, JP. This is a 6-speed manual 95. And it's out there in Wrightstown, Pennsylvania, showing 92,000 miles. JP, I have to say, I am a sucker for this metallic black. I know in certain light, it looks like a dark brown metallic, or sometimes a dark gray metallic, but I really like the color. I like it paired with the tan seats and the black dash. This car works for me on a lot of levels. The cocoa mats sort of round it out, and it looks like it's got a classic radio and one of those rosewood shift knobs. These cars come with AC, and the 95s are a lot less problematic. JP, you had a 95 cab for a decade and drove the wheels off that thing. I know this is a C4, but this is a really nice, really usable, and let's just face it, like, you know, the most do-everything Porsche they ever made. That's why you, the guy who flips his cars more often than he changes his own underwear, you had that car for like 11 years. You know, when you look at pictures of a 993 cab, do you just go, I miss you, honey? Like I got to drive your car a couple times and I loved it. And I sold several 993 cabs when I was at Godden, and I really like driving those cars. If you had to have one, a 993 cab could get you pretty far in life. So this looks like a really nice one. It's a friend of the show. We're happy to take a deep look on it. The car is very clean. There is a accident, unfortunately, reported on the Carfax. Somebody bumped into this car from the rear and had to be towed away, but by all accounts, it looks like it's in really great condition. I don't think that the Carfax is going to hurt the value here, and we just saw a 993 C4 nearly bring 6 figures with particularly low miles and a few tiny accessories to make it look special. So JP, I offer to you a black metallic 993 C4 Cabriolet with a few miles on the odometer. This is going to prove to be a really good value, I think, for somebody with the all-wheel drive and the miles. What do you think, JP? Would you take a shot on this?
I love the car. I'm just kind of over C4s. I've had a couple of them, and I really don't want another one. I'm not going to poo-poo them. They are great cars, but when there's a lot more weight in that front end, and to get a 993 C4 to do really what you want it to do, you got to do a lot of suspension work. You got to put coilovers in one of these to really make it happy. This is still a great car, absolutely wonderful driver. It's still going to have that air-cooled 911 thing going. It's a drop top, so it doesn't really matter if it's the top end from a performance point of view. But hey, whoever buys this, I've got an RS shift knob. Can I interest you in that right there? Yeah. It's going to be interesting that he's selling this car this time of year. We're going into the fall already. I will tell you that if you want one of these, flying out to Pennsylvania and buying this thing and driving it home wherever you live this time of year that would be an absolutely fantastic road trip.
Epic.
And
Epic.
and I'm all about road trips. We just published the first couple episodes of Porsche Road Trip on our YouTube channel, Cars Unknown. So if you guys haven't seen that yet, please go check out our sister channel, Cars Unknown, also known as the Defy channel. And I have full episodes going up there, and we have another 6 coming over the next 6 weeks. So go over there and subscribe to that channel if you haven't done it already. But yeah, this car is a perfect car for a road trip. You're going to have lots of fun. And if you do hit some inclement weather, you do have that front diff to make sure you don't slide off the road. So yeah, but what do we think this car is going to bring this time of year? 90,000 miles with an accident and a cab. This is not blue chip. This is not what everyone's looking for, or almost anyone's looking for. I think this is the kind of car that you get if you're settling. What do you think it'll bring, Deeb?
That's a good question, JP. It's really hard to talk about values. I think the colorway and the photos are going to drive the value here. I don't think the accident is going to play a big factor. C4s are a little softer than other ones, but man, 993 and 964 Cabriolets are starting to bring ridiculous money, JP. And I think this is the last moment to get good money for a cab. I think if you wait 2 or 3 more weeks, certainly nobody's buying any in Louisiana this week. So this might be the last opportunity to do it. JP, I'm all in on this car. I'm going to go high. I'm going to say $72,000 will get this car sold. Our car is sitting at $20,993, and it is there on by way of
$72,000. What are you? I can smell the crack from here coming out of your steering. What? You guys, what happened to my partner, Michael Deeb? He tends to know things.
You just got $92,000 for a C4 cab with half the miles.
Yeah, but like, I love cabs, but they only bring half of what coupes do. And $72,000 is not half of 92. That's a lot more. I think this car is going to be lucky to get in the mid 50s. I'm going to say 57 because it is a really nice color. But I'd be shocked if it gets above 60. This car, where's it sitting at right now already?
20,993.
Yeah, and how many days to go, you said?
Closes tomorrow.
Closes tomorrow. So to get to 70 grand, it's going to have to triple in 24 hours.
Were you at 57? 57,900?
Yeah, 57,993. I'll be that cute. And boy, I mean, that would be cool if it did get that much money, but I just don't see that. I haven't seen a cab do that. If it had low miles, if this car were a 30 or 40,000 mile 993 cab, like the one we talked about, like my old coupe, then maybe. But with this kind of miles, I don't see it. But maybe I'm smoking crack too. And it'll be awesome if Deeb gets this one right. If it gets in the $70,000 range, we are definitely talking crazy Limbo situation here, because that's just bonkers. Let us know what you think this 993 will bring. What, you're going to say something?
Well, Randy B said 78, so I'm not the highest guy. Thank you, Randy, for covering me. And then there's a couple of there's a 68 and there's 2 68s and a 66 in the herd. But Chris Carbine says, see the market, Deeb. You've been smoking some of that hurricane crack.
Well, hey, look, Gerd's at 49. So what do we, I mean, geez. Kevin,
Ask
what
the
the
ace.
hell?
Ask the ace. Yeah, there you go.
All right.
All right,
we talk
JP.
about the knob enough for Anthony. Anthony wants to hear about more knobs. All right. What's the next car on the list? See if we can answer this question. Are we in limbo on BAT with the classic and collector car market?
Yeah. So, JP, every once in a while, we like to take a flyer on an Italian car that the American market knows nothing about. How about this 1990 Lancia Thema 3.32? So the Lancia Thema was their 3-box design. I think this was built, I want to call it the Sigma chassis or something, where they did like the Saab and the Alfa on the Lancia. And I think there was one other car built on this platform. I mean, if you glance, doesn't that look like, if you squint, JP, doesn't that look like an edgier Saab 9000 or an Alfa Romeo 164?
No.
So they built this.
No, it looks like a Peugeot ME406 or something like that.
Well, it's bigger than that car. But anyways, yeah, you've got this. It is definitely of that same design, that 3-box design. JP, they made this car with a 6-cylinder front-wheel drive all over the universe, but they wanted to sell, and they made apparently 4,000 of these things between 88 and 92, where they got a motor, the 3-liter V8 from Ferrari with the Quattrovalvo version, the 16-valve version. That motor made like 245 horsepower or something. And not a lot of torque, but anyway, a fun, revvy, oily, stinky V8 from Ferrari. And when this car debuted, JP, I can't remember what it sold for brand new, and they never brought this car to the United States. Lancia was out of business in the U.S., and Alfa was following them out the door just a few years after this car debuted. But in Europe, this was considered a semi-exotic sports sedan. It was, a Lancia with the heart of a Ferrari. It was supposed to be a really big deal. Now, a few of these cars have turned 25 years old, and they are for sale in the United States. A friend of mine was just trying to sell one with a few more miles for $35,000 here in the Bay Area. But it's a used car, JP. These cars don't handle very well. I don't know that they're terribly reliable. And where on earth would you go to get this car worked on, and how on earth would you find parts for it? So despite this car's sort of exotic heritage, I don't think it has it's misunderstood in the United States and has no following. There is probably zero demand for a Lancia Thema, despite the 8.32 drivetrain that makes this car special. And look at that active rear wing, JP. It's got a rear spoiler that comes up at speed. I mean, again, it was supposed to be something special when it came out, but these cars they really weren't that fast. A Mercedes, a 500E or an M5 would run circles around this car. And they are not worth much money today. And sorry, even if you own a Ferrari and you're looking to round out your collection of 80s Ferraris, nobody's looking to put a Thema in their garage. So JP, I just thought it'd be fun to take a look at this car. It looks so pedestrian after looking at the pictures of that 993 cab and that Ford GT. Man, this car has just had such a rough life, and it's going nowhere. Like, these cars are all going to wind up being junked. I don't know anybody that's going to spend money to keep this car on the road. What a sad thing. I just thought it was so wild. Like, what the coolest car ever, a Lancia with a Ferrari. And now who cares? Oh boy, talk about rough. JP,
what's it going to bring, Michael Deeb? What's it going to bring? Let's just get to the number. What's it going to bring?
All right. Our car is currently at $7,500. And it's on 17 bids. There are virtually no comps for a value. JP, I put $25,832, but that's a reach. That might be as strong a reach as I did on the 993 cab.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it could be a Volvo 7 Series from the 80s, or the Peugeot, like I said, or a Nissan Sentra, all things that nobody wants, with a Ferrari engine. So the amount of money it would cost to keep this thing on the road, is there any value in that engine to put in something else, Michael Deeb? If somebody had an actual Ferrari and they're like, okay, my Mondial blew up, would it be better for them to buy this car and pilfer the engine out of it rather than trying to find an engine on its own?
Yeah, the motor might be worth 20 grand and the car might not bring 20 grand.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that's about the only. That interior, I have to admit, the interior it's not gorgeous or anything, but it's pretty, look how much leather there is. And this one in particular is in really good shape. It's, like I said, it's not something to marvel at, but a lot of workmanship there. Anyways, I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to guess your number was what?
$25,832.
I can't even get there. It's at $7,500. It's going to close tomorrow. I'm going to say it gets $13,000 and fails to sell. The owner of this thing just can't be expecting anything real, can he? Is there any chance that this guy thinks he's actually going to get money for it?
I don't know. It's just rough, man.
This guy, I think, that's the thing. The word limbo, a lot of people use the same word for purgatory, and this car really is going to be in that place between heaven and hell, if ever there was one. I mean, there's so many things on paper. You read something like that and you go, oh, this thing should be awesome. And then you look at it and you're like, yeah, no, this is kind of terrible, I guess. I don't know. Talk about Limbo. What do you guys think this little Lancia will bring? Speaking of, as ugly as this car is, I'd sure like to see one at Vegas Auto Fest coming up on the 21st. And like we said earlier, we sure hope you guys are coming. Shout out to the Nerd Herd for hanging out with us. Get a couple more likes up there, guys. Come on, let's get some more thumbs up. The show keeps growing, and that's thanks to you guys. And that's we really, really, really love that you guys just keep supporting the show. I was up in Seattle this weekend, did the Porsche Concours in Kirkland from the PCA, met some great Nerd Herd and nerd fans, so that was really cool. People came and said hello, so thanks again to those of you who did, and shout out to T. Cruz for driving me around in his brilliant C4 964. That was lots of fun. Michael Deeb, when are you coming out to Vegas? You're going to be in studio here in Vegas with me the next episode, right?
Yeah, we're going to get up early on Sunday morning and drive to Las Vegas with the dogs and the baby. And hopefully I get in town in time to make it to the studio and do the very next show live in studio. And I'll be live in studio for the 3 shows after that. So it'll be Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday. I'll do 3 shows in studio before we turn around and come home to San Francisco, Marin County. So yeah, that'll be really fun. Looking forward to catching up with all my Vegas peeps. I can't wait to see you guys. And then everybody coming to town from AutoFest. If you've been, you know you're going to have a good time. If you haven't been, you have no idea how silly and ridiculous it is. You're going to love it. We can't wait to see you.
All right, guys. We will see you Sunday night.
Get the word!